trying to get out of the way, just got in it.
Just a quick update for the council we are getting close to advertising our driving range netting replacement. That should be out, my plan is by Friday. So it'll more than likely be the first council meeting in April that we would be coming back with those bid results. So just wanted to give you a brief update on that golf course netting project.
Mayor, I guess,
All right, go ahead.
do we need to do a budget change since it's not gonna be done, or because they're gonna be awarded before April, we're fine?
It will get rolled over in the cash carryover because the cash is still, it was budgeted, included in this year's budget. The cash will still be there on April 1st, and so it will be included in the cash carryover true up.
Is there any interest earned on that money?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, item B, outdoor storm sirens.
I'm Scott Lyons, the Chief of Police and Director of Belton Emergency Management Agency, BEMA, it's sometimes referred to as. The Assistant Director of BEMA is Lieutenant John Baker. This presentation tonight is very timely because March 7th through 11th is Missouri's Spring Severe Weather Awareness Week. And so our storm weather sirens, we have 17. They're controlled by 2 computers, one primary at the police department, and the backup is at the EOC at Fire Department Station number 2. And then there's an encoder at both sites. And this map shows just in the red the sirens that are located in our area. And I want to point out up on the left, kind of off of Holmes, you'll see is the one for Loch Lloyd. And this map shows the configuration of the circles or the areas where those sirens reach out to. And you can see that a lot of them overlap, and then you get that football-sized shape where you have more intense coverage. During this year, we upgraded our encoders. We actually hired a vendor that does our maintenance, and they did a whole system check. This had been a person that had been used in the past, but there was other services that they offered that we never took advantage of. And we identified that the encoders, which control the sirens, once that we give them an alert to signal, were actually 1998 technology, and they were outdated, no longer supported by the manufacturer, and there was no longer any parts available, and so we upgraded to brand new ones. This brought up an interesting point with our system, is that some of the components were purchased at the same time, and good maintenance or good upkeep of a system would be regularly replacing some of these units, so we get units that are brand new, about ready to be replaced, and then we have a schedule, and so we're building that this year with the help of our vendor. We also upgraded to a control software system. It's called Commander One, and this system actually activates every day for a system health check at 7 a.m. And it goes out and it talks to each one of the sirens and does a diagnostic on whether or not they are on electrical power, if they're on backup power, or if there's some kind of problem with signaling with them, and it alerts us to it, and it also sends a signal to our maintenance provider, and then we have them come out, and they're usually, it's within probably 2 hours before they come out. But we have that system checked a lot of times before we've even left our houses and come in the morning. And it's a great system. It's all automated, and it also takes the dispatchers out of that loop where the messages are sent to Lieutenant Baker and I, and then also, like I said, it goes to the vendor. From a computer, select computers in the police department, we can actually we can activate those if we see that there is a storm coming that we've not been alerted to, and so we can proactively alert those as well. We also have a master reset on the Sirens, and we can also do tests. And this feature came in real handy because several months ago we did a monthly test on the system. We had a citizen that reported they couldn't hear the siren. And so what we did was we actually conducted a test, sent a police officer out underneath the siren, and then activated it, and then we're able to confirm it did activate audibly. And then we were able to communicate back to the citizen that it did operate. And so it's very important that we have these kinds of checks and balances on the system, because when you need it, you don't want to find out that you have problems. And so we've actually found that this has been a very good resource for the police department in BEMA. This is just a animation of our system, and it shows that when we have a polygon that's activated by the National Weather Service, like through that area of that circle, it will automatically, the system, Commander One software will automatically activate those sirens, and you'll see down in the bottom right-hand part of the screen, you'll see the siren as it goes around. And so there's other features with this that we're going to explore this year in hopes of upgrading our system, and we'll be bringing those back at some time in another work session later on. One of the things I wanted to tell you that if, say for instance, we have areas of our coverage, this software automatically activates. It's real interesting that over on the Johnson County, Kansas side, this is a feature that they've had in their communities for a long period of time. And so it is a well-tested system of letting the Commander One software activate automatically. And the other thing is that it's a proven to save lives because of other cities across the country. Our main message when it comes to weather season is to be weather aware. And that is to be aware of forecasts, check it multiple times if you need to, and monitor for changes to the forecast. We ask people to be vigilant and be more aware not just looking at the sky, and notice any changes, and then have a plan and use that plan when weather becomes a concern to your safety. And so one of the things that we're going to talk about in a few minutes is going to be shelters. If there are shelters in one of your areas, in the area that you live, or you know of a shelter where you're having your activities at, have a plan and know where it's at, because the last thing you need to be doing is looking on a smartphone or asking for directions. We have one FEMA shelter, and it's a FEMA certified shelter at the Belton High School. And that's the only FEMA shelter in town. It has a maximum occupancy of 1,516 people. Citizens may enter the shelter with service animals. That's always a question that we get. How it works is BEMA management will alert the school district, and we will get the shelter open and as tornado warnings approach. And a lot of times, if we know that weather is approaching, we've already made that call and we're making preparation for that, just in case we need it. BEMA employees, those are volunteers that we have, also assist in the opening of the shelter. And then we also have some private storm shelters within the city limits, but the city of Belton and BEMA do not inspect these. or rate them or certify these as storm shelters, and I'll go through a list of them. They are inspected by codes, but that's only in regards to fire compliance. We have Lazy Acres Mobile Home Park has 1 storm shelter, Y Highway and Lazy Acres Lane. Crown Trailer Park has 3 storm shelters on Cambridge Road. Plaza Acres Mobile Home Park has 1 storm shelter in the court area. Springdale Lake Mobile Home Park has 2 storm shelters. One is located within the business office. The second is near Springdale Drive and Narcissus Lane. South Fork Mobile Park has 7, to include 463 Valine, 370 Jenna, 50 Pamela, west of 230 Pamela, 132 Miss Ellie Circle, 81 Miss Ellie Circle, and there's one located behind 309 Dollar Drive. And then finally we have one at Progressive Rail, 16101 South Outer Road at the Southview Commerce Center, and it has 2 employee shelters on the north and south sides of the building. And that's our presentation. If you have any questions.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Chief, I happened to be out on the base last Wednesday morning, and I heard those go off at 11 o'clock, and at about 11:20, I heard another one go off out west. Was that something that wasn't working properly, or is that?
Yeah, we looked into that. You sent me the email on that. We looked into it, and we show that it activated on time, but we're continuing to check that siren. I know that the ones off Holmes Road in the past have had some issues, but we're going to make sure, and we're actually set up to do a on-site test of that.
I just didn't know because we only set those off, the first Wednesday of every month now, right, at 11 o'clock?
Yeah.
Do we actually have people out listening to those to make sure they're going off, or is that just an internal thing that your computer's telling you?
We do dispatch officers and have them in the different areas and have them report. But sometimes we might not have, enough officers for all of them. And then we do have some citizens that call in, and FEMA volunteers also help with that. But it is sporadic, and we do try to check those.
Okay, yeah, I was just happened to be out there, and one just kind of went off by itself, and it seemed like it'd been out there by Holmes Road or something like that, so.
Then there's a lot of times that sound travels differently when we have leaves on trees. Of course, we don't have that now, but when you have wind, when you have geography, maybe that siren is a little bit more down from you and you were elevated. There's a lot of factors in that.
I was out there with my nephew, and it just happened to be one. He goes, "Oh, there's one that didn't go off timely or something," and I'm like, "Oh yeah." And the other thing, I guess, is nowadays you're saying that if there's a storm on the southeast side of town, the only sirens are going to go off or something that affects that area, not the whole community anymore.
Yeah, our system works on where that siren is located and where that weather event is. Because
Officer Baker, Lieutenant Baker has a question or answer, I guess.
Sir, when the polygon hits any of that red ring, the entire system, so all the horns in the city will sound regardless of where that polygon touches.
Okay.
So I thought-
Well, I thought his thing up here said that, like, if it was going over Loch Lloyd, the only ones that would go.
It was an example of when those polygons hit, as they appear through the National Weather Service, when that polygon touches any part of that red ring that surrounded the entire city, because if you notice, that ring is offset to the west and a little to the south, so that we can get a little bit earlier warning to it, but once it touches, all 17 sirens will sound.
I just know over the last 5 years, it seems like people will say, well, I couldn't hear the sirens, and I mean, so it's good that we're out testing them. Thank you.
The other thing, I'm sorry about that, I made a mistake, but the one thing about what you just said, this system is designed for those people who are outside. It's not designed to get through residential walls. There are some people that do hear it through their residential walls of their houses or buildings. That's great, but the system is built for those outside, and that's why we want people to be weather aware and pay attention to media.
Well, I got one that seems like about 100 foot from my house, so I can hear it on the inside very well. And when they used to speak to us, yeah, you could hear it. So I know Perry can hear it too. So yeah, it's
Councilman Powell.
When these were set up several years ago, was there some kind of science to it, or was it, I mean, I know you have people checking, or officers checking, but is there some kind of science behind where they were placed, or was it just where people offered to have them in their backyards, or?
So, Blue Valley Public Safety is our service provider, and they actually came out and studied, I don't know if, was there the map in there with all the different rings? I can't remember if that was in there or not. We have a map that actually shows all the ring overlaps, and that was designed by Blue Valley Public Safety, so that you can,
John, come up to the microphone so everybody on the TV can hear you.
Yeah, I see it.
There's the map right there. So this is what Blue Valley Public Safety came up with, and as you can see, they are intended, we have a lot more coverage sound-wise than a lot of other communities, and that's because of all the overlap we have.
Yeah,
But
Okay.
Yeah, that was specifically done by them. We're actually, so you know, we have like two different sirens. We have the mechanicals that rotate, then we have the modular ones that look like a bunch of bubbles stacked on top of each other. So we're actually in the process of looking at reinstituting the voice message that comes out of those. Because we were under the impression that there was some testing that didn't take place, and that's why they were not as intelligible as we think they could have been. So we're actually Blue Valley is looking at the modular coming out when the weather's better, and we'll probably be doing multiple tests, actually looking to see what level do we have to have the audible message so that the people that are intended to hear it can hear it, and then it'll kick right back up to the original full volume for the siren itself.
Okay. Well, thank you.
And what he just mentioned, we were gonna test at, our city parks. We felt like that would be the most likely area where we'd have people out, that would need a message. And so that's something that we're gonna be testing.
Councilmember Kraft.
My question was actually about those audible messages. I had a citizen ask me today after the statewide test if we were not having that anymore since it wasn't part of that. Is that something we're just temporarily not doing?
So, before I came into it, those audible messages were determined to be unintelligible in most cases. So they felt it was just better to just turn them off so that people weren't questioning, well, what is it saying? So what we've got, if you look, and this map doesn't show you which sirens are which, but all those city parks have a modular siren near them to include the high school area. So the goal is to come back when the weather's good, because we're actually going to take people out in the field to listen to it, and they'll adjust the volume so that we can make sure that the target audience, being the park or the high school outside, for those people who are not from our community, will understand what that siren is. Because while we think it's a standard sound, not every community across the country has storm sirens that make the same sound or may not have them at all. So the idea is that those folks, when they're visitors, we get lots of, the ballparks, competitions, they'll come in, well, what is that? Oh, wait, there's a message telling them there's a tornado warning in the area, please take shelter. And we want that message to be intelligible. So until we get that tested to see what volume has to be, because you've got, not only do you have the ambient sound travel, you have it reflecting or bouncing off of buildings and other structures. And those things, when they start overlapping, then you get, blah, 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 blah. You can't have any idea what it is. So that we have to determine what that volume has to be, so that once we get those out, and then we have to set them up on a delay as well, so that the verbal message comes out first on the modular sirens, and then once that message is done, then the system has to kick off all the rest of the sirens, because if all the system is going off, they will overrun the audible message that we're trying to get out. So we've got a few different sound tests we're going to have to do throughout as the weather gets better.
Thank you.
Councilmember Go.
I was on the council back when the last old ones were put in. They were strategically placed where they could be heard in every location within the city. And the one problem that we had after getting them in was we had a lot of people complain they couldn't hear them inside. And we had to do a lot of training on that. This is an outdoor weather alert system, not an indoor. You will not always hear it indoors. And I think it finally calmed down, but that was a big issue at the time. And one went off today too, by the way.
Well, today was the statewide test, so the entire system was activated at 10 o'clock in conjunction with the state test.
Councilmember Watt.
We have one storm shelter in the city. Are there plans looking at strategically putting in another one?
There have been no discussions about having any other storm shelters built, and that's in part because of the weather awareness program, that if you go to SEMA's website or FEMA's website, particularly ready.gov, the citizens is encouraged to be aware of the weather themselves. We're essentially a backup. You have to watch your own weather, use your apps, use your NOAA weather radar, prepare your own home shelter. In the event something happens, when you look at folks coming in to help, we are many hours, if not a couple of days away before real outside help gets here. So having your own shelter set up in your home with your own water supplies, your own food supplies, blankets, generators if you decide you need those kinds of things, that's what those are really for. That's what is encouraged and taught through FEMA.
Well, I'm struggling a little bit with the idea that we're putting voice out, go seek shelter when they're at the park. They may not be here, they may be at ball fields, and we have one place significantly across town, and we're telling them to go seek shelter, and they may not know where the shelter's at. And so we have one versus looking at some strategic places in the parks and other places to offer that. If we're gonna tell them to go see a shelter, we might want to at least have something close by. That's just a thought.
Yeah.
Good point.
Just for information purposes, that the FEMA shelter at the high school was a combination of the school district and the FEMA money. When they built that on there, they were able to build the gymnasium kind of thing and got FEMA money to build it strong enough for withstand a tornado. But once you mentioned that I thought, maybe we need to have a signage out there indicated that the shelter is right down here. You know, I think you got a good point.
Anybody else? Thank you, John. Item C, Old Town Belton 353, 514 D Street.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. On March 2nd, the Old Town Belton Redevelopment Corporation Board recommended approval of this residential application, which will come before you on April 12th. And notifications will be going out to the taxing jurisdictions pursuant to state statute.
Any questions? Seeing none, D, GFL Solid Waste Contract.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I just wanted to notify you that we entered a contract with WCA, who is now GFL, almost 3 years ago. That contract was dated July 22nd, 2019. It was for an original term of 3 years and will be expiring this July. And in the contract, there is a provision that will allow you to extend that contract for 2 years. There's actually two 2-year extensions, but I was going to prepare for the April 12th meeting an ordinance that you could go ahead and extend that contract. We have been notified by GFL in that contract they are able to do a rate increase. There's a specific calculation that has to be done in order for them to do that. They have notified us and given us notice, and that contract would be a 58-cent increase per month. That would go into effect if we extended the contract beginning July 22nd.
What percentage was that?
It was 4.4%.
4.4?
Any questions?
Mayor, I'll just make a statement, having been here for the term, and Councilwoman Peak and Councilman Trutzel would probably concur with me that the last 3 years has been wonderful. I was only on for 3 months with the other carrier, and it was a long 3 months. So I've had, I can't tell you how many complaints I've had with GFL. I mean, maybe 1 or 2 in 3 years. So that was a daily occurrence with the last carrier. So it's been wonderful. And me personally would say go ahead and extend our contract instead of going out to bid. They've been very good to work with.
Councilman Powell.
Well, yeah, when we had to choose our own, we had the opportunity to choose our own, WCA always came in lower of the ones that were servicing Belton at the time. So I assume they would still be lower than what we'd find if we went out for a bid, unless we got Jim's. Maybe Jim's is cheaper, but.
Do you have something? Any other questions? All right, seeing none. Item E, Mullin Road project.
I wanted to give a short little update on Mullin Road project. It's a TDD, Transportation Development District, that the city has that is working on Mullin Road. It has, in previous segments, they've built Markey Parkway and they built Mullin Road down to the railroad tracks. The next project is to go from the railroad tracks down to Cambridge, and at Cambridge there'll be a roundabout. That project is now, we're working with the TDD. They're working on the financing, and we're starting to work on acquiring all the properties. All the properties are basically have signed and are ready to go, except for 2 properties at the south end, right at the roundabout. As part of the process, since we are getting appraisals on those right now, but over the next month, as we get appraisals and approach the residents, the owners of those 2 properties, that if they choose not to sign them, we'll have no choice but to go to condemnation in order to make this project move forward. And I wanted to advise you that as we do this, we will be, if they do not sign, which we've made multiple offers to them before, I mean multiple offers, negotiated very hard with them before, that they have chosen not to sign. And so I'm letting you know that in the future, in April, we'll probably bring a condemnation ordinance to you to condemn those 2 properties so the project can move forward. Happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead.
This is an outside board, TDD board. So do they reimburse us for your time or your staff's time for working on this?
Not for our time. They reimburse the actual expenditures, but not.
So if we have any attorney's time or anything like that, they reimburse us for the attorneys?
If we get an invoice from the attorney specifically for that, yes.
Well, you're talking about condemnation. I'm assuming that has to be a legal thing, so. All right, thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing none. Item F, 58 and Powell project.
This is the same type of subject, just a different location. So 58 and Powell, we have sent out the initial letters to all the property owners at 58 and Powell and along 173rd Street in Peculiar Drive, letting them know that this project's moving forward, that we're doing an evaluation of their property. I've spoken to several of them about acquiring the easements necessary to build the project, and all of them are very resistant to having the project be constructed.
Sure.
And so we'll be following the same process to get the easements. They're mostly all easements. There's only 2 real acquisitions, and but we'll have to follow the same condemnation process. So you will see something on that shortly.
Go ahead.
Is it against the law to post their names and phone numbers so the residents can call them who are complaining about 58 Highway?
I would suggest not taking that action.
Oh, well, I mean, we get beat up because 58 Highway is jammed all the time. I mean, we're trying to make it better, and yet we're having resistance from people that own the properties around here. Are they resistant because I don't want it to change, or are they resistant because I don't like our money?
Most of it's resistance for change. A couple of them with developers. They believe that the way it is, they can rent the spaces better, even though some of them are completely full, that it affects their future. And I think it's just...
But I mean, you sit there and watch on Facebook. We always like to talk about Facebook, but I mean, even people call you, send letters about 58 Highway and the jam and the bridge and all that stuff that we're trying to fix. I mean, we try to avoid 58 highway at all costs unless we're going somewhere specifically on 58 highway. So I just can't imagine that these business owners aren't reading the same stuff.
So I met with one of the developers who owns the property, and he was complaining about, losing some access to make a left turn out of a shopping center, even though we're improving the main road coming out of his main exit from 3 lanes to 4 lanes, giving 3 lanes to exit out to improve his in and out. And I told him that you can't even make a left turn out of this entrance during lunchtime, during peak times. And I invited him to come sit out there and sit with me. We have yet to do it, but I have sat there and watched it myself over lunch, and nobody makes a left turn out of that business because it's impossible. And so if you try to do it, that's where the crashes occur. And so that's how come we're trying to make this improvement. It'll make it all better, but this is just one piece of a bigger puzzle. And I can't explain why people make decisions the way they do. They just do.
Anybody else? Item G, privatization of city assets.
So this evening I wanted to make a short presentation discussion about privatization of city assets. There's been 2 questions that have come up, one about water and one about sewer. And so we're going to handle sewer in about 10 seconds so we don't talk about it much longer because there's really not much talk about it. On the sewer side, if we looked at regionalization and privatization, it's actually not going private. That sewer would be given to another governmental group, and so that's not privatization. The mayor sits on a committee that oversees that, so it's still controlled by local government. And so that's all I really wanted to say about sewer side. On the water side, I know some of you or most of you have been visited by someone talking about privatization of a water system. This is something that some towns have decided to do over time, and a lot of other towns have decided not to do. I want to say, if you consider this and you hear people talk about it, this is a very important decision, and it's a permanent decision. Once you make a decision to go private with water or sewer, it's nothing you can ever change back. I mean, you technically can, but basically it's like selling a car to somebody, and you sell it for $1,000, and you say, oh, I regret it. I wish I had that car back. And they say, that's no problem. You give me $2,000, you can have the car back today. So if you think about an asset you may sell for 10 million, 20 million, and they come back and say you can have it back for 40, 50, or 60 million, you're really never going to do it. Once you privatize water, it's a decision that you can't go back on. So it's really not to solve a short-term problem. It's really a long-term decision of the direction we want to go with this asset. So one of the questions people were, how does this work and how does this operate? So basically, when a company comes and buys the water system from you, they're actually buying all the parts. I mean, they're buying the hydrants, they're buying the mains, they're buying everything, all the meters. They get it all. They normally, at that time, will pay off your debt. And you're saying, well, how do they do this and lower your water bills? Because that's how they're going to sell it to you. And a lot of them have different methods. So paying off, because they're a private company, when they pay off your debt, they have different ways through taxation and not paying taxes and depreciation to pay off debt. They also can take the debt and spread it among all their customers. So even though they pay off the debt here, they can take that debt, and if they have 300,000 or 400,000 customers, they can spread it among them, charge them all a couple dollars, and it disappears, and then all of a sudden the water rates become lower. Now you should remember that, because as they acquire other customers in other parts of the state, they then can charge off their debt and their costs back to us. And so it works both ways. So initially, yes, they can do that, but in the long run, it's going to keep coming back. So, basically, you have to remember that if you privatize a water system, that the company that owns it is looking at the bottom dollar. That's their main focus. They're not looking at service is always their top thing, as they'll talk about. They'll mention that they meet Missouri DNR quality standards. And meeting Missouri DNR quality standards is something that's very important. But you have to remember, the DNR standards are looking for certain things in the water. They're looking for bacteria, they're looking for lead, there's a bunch of other chemicals they're looking for. But they're not looking for taste and quality and the color of water. Those are not characteristics of water that they have to maintain. And so, I'll talk about that here in a little bit. But one of the things that doesn't work well with them is things like shutoffs. So if you go and look up some of the private companies out there and you look at their rating in the Better Business Bureau, you'll notice that they're rated 1 star. And nearly all of them are rated 1 star, and they ask why they rated 1 star. And the simple answer is because you can't give them 0 stars. And the number of complaints filed at the Better Business Bureau is significant. I would encourage you, if you want to look it up, you can look it up yourself. I'm not going to tell you because it's something you can see, and you'll be shocked. You can read complaint after complaint after complaint after complaint. When it goes private, they can call you, but there's nothing you can do. Because just like Evergy or someone else, you guys call me about streetlights been out for a year. I've called them. They have tariffs they have to go by and how quickly they have to turn a streetlight back on. I have fought with them to get them on after 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, but they're still not on, even though they're supposed to be back on in a couple weeks. But something like shutoffs are required. They have a rule, and this is it. There's 13 pages about how you get service, when they discontinue service, and when they increase or return your service. For shutoffs, they're required to have someone available to turn your water back on the same day. But you'll notice as you read their policies how they do it. They do water turn back ons after you pay the bill within 48 hours. So if you pay your bill on a Friday, yes, they're available to do it, but they may do it in 48 working hours, which will be Tuesday. And as you know in Belton, if you don't have water in your house is uninhabitable. You have to move out. And so you'll be without a house for 4 days. They are protected also by what they call tariffs, and there's rules about what can happen and what can happen. There's another 26-page document that explains what the rules are and what they're liable for. And just to give you an example, I want to read a couple of them to you. If you pull it up, it's on page 13. It says that the company should not be liable for damage to the customer or third persons. So the city would be considered a third person out there. The customer would be our resident. Unless contributory negligence on the part of the company without contributory negligence on the part of the customer or third party. So you're saying, and this is something that he's really good at, what is contributory negligence? So it's the defendant must prove that the claimant failed to take reasonable care for the safety on the part that contributed the damage. So for instance, if a water line breaks and that water goes into your yard and does damage, they're not responsible. If the water goes into your basement and destroys your basement, they're not responsible. If the water goes onto your roof, freezes in the winter, pulls off your roof, they're not responsible for it. They will not do anything for you. There's nothing you can do. There's no action because they're protected by this tariff. It goes on to say in here that their employee is not allowed to negotiate, change, promise, or do anything different. It's in their rules. And the company should not be liable for damage to the customer for interruption of service. So if the service is interrupted for any reason and there's damage to your house because of the interruption, that they're not liable for it. So turning the water on and off, there's a difference in pressure. When that pressure hits again, if something breaks in your house, they're not liable for what happens. So these are just the rules that private companies go by. We also found out from calling other people that brakes are also not fixed quickly. Brakes are costly to fix. Water's cheap, so it's easy to let water run down the street. Your pressure will be a little lower in your house than come fix a brake. And the big thing is taste and colors are not, Missouri DNR quality standard. So we have a lot of problems and calls that we get on a pretty routine basis where people have cast iron pipes in town because the water turns brown. That also tastes funny at times. So the things that we do, and that's mainly because of the pipes, and sometimes it's because of the algae that's in the water in the Missouri River. So what we do is we go flush the lines. And we usually go out within a couple hours, flush the main, and we try to eliminate that color and taste problem. That's not an issue that's a concern to a private company because that's not a Missouri DNR requirement to do that. So one of the questions people ask, if private companies can reduce the price of their monthly costs, how do they make money? Where are they making money at? So if you go and you look at their construction contracts, where they make the money is in replacement of lines. So one of the reasons you were probably contacted recently, at least we have a bond issuance up, right, for $60 million. It's a lot of lines to be replaced. So they can replace lines. We just did the most expensive water line replacement job we've ever done. We brought it to you. It's $180 a foot, which is a lot more than we normally used to pay. And if you look at some of the private companies and their bids and their jobs, they're averaging between $250 and $300 a foot, almost double the cost. So why is it double the cost? It's because there's profit in there. And some of the profit is 20, 30, 40% of the jobs that they do, and they get to keep that money. So when you offer $60 million worth of work, you can see that there's a possibility of making $20, $30 million on this job. So there's money in it. It just is how you do it. So one of the things that they have to do is they have to go through a thing called a PSC, the Public Service Commission. They regulate private utilities in Missouri. So if it's sold to a private company, you no longer regulate it. You no longer have any control on it. It goes to the Public Service Committee. They have, like I said, if you go online and look, they have books and books of all these different rules they have to follow. And basically, if you look in the last few years and just pull up a few different companies, some of them have 73 different pages of rate changes in just the last couple of years. Basically, every quarter they're submitting a rate change. And every time there's a rate change, if we'd like it not to go through, we have to send an attorney or someone of that caliber to go down there and argue against them not to raise the rates. And so raising rates is something they do very regularly. Other side effects, and I'm going to talk about rates here right at the end, but other side effects is development. And so when we do development, we're partners. Like we're partners with North Point right now on Allen Avenue. They paid for a part, we paid for a part. And so it's a way to get it done. If there's someone else wants to move in and we want to add a main, we can work with them on how we're going to get that main added. If we're going to pay for a part, they're going to pay for it to get other businesses in town. If it's private, then we struggle like we would do with Evergy to try to get them to bring power, to get things done and get them timely in order to get a business into town. Another side effect is we'll lose some of our field crews. We'll lose our water crew from Public Works. We'll also lose the field customer service people. We'll lose the people at the front counter take the bills and the money that supports administration. This actually, one of the side effects will be we'll lose 25% of our snow removal people. So when we look at snow removal, the people in the water department actually plow snow just like everyone else does. So that service will be greatly affected. But it also affect people if the rates go back up. And they will go back up. It'll affect people like the golf course and the parks who buy a lot of water for swimming pools or for watering the golf course. So, yes, I'm going to conclude by saying, yes, they can lower prices initially. But all they have to do is go to the PSC to increase prices. So if you don't think they increase prices, here's my Spire bill from last year and this year. So last year, my Spire bill was at 0.15637 per cubic foot of gas. They went to the PSC, and my gas bill now is 0.27073, which is a 96% increase in 1 year on my gas bill that they approved, and they're going for 25% more this year. And so, can our water prices go up dramatically? Absolutely. Will water lines be replaced? I don't know. Depends on the agreement you sign, but most likely not. There's no desire to replace them because that costs money, and they can put that on your bill. So a lot of towns have a cost for water, and then the PSC, the Public Service Commission, can give another line in there that is for infrastructure cost. So they can add, just like we have water and we have debt, they can do the same thing and put that back on your bill. And so I'll conclude giving you this one thing. You'll remember about a year and a half ago, you may or may not have been in council at the time, we had a 16-inch line, ductile iron line, that broke at South Fork. The water actually rushed through one of the homes that was there, and it took us 15 minutes from the call to get there to shut the water off. In that 15 minutes, 2/3 of our water tower leaked out, rushed out of that hole. And you remember that. That was a very tragic day for us. Had nobody from the private company been here and they had to drive in from another town, that water tower would have emptied. If the water tower empties, then all of a sudden you go to an immediate boil order. No one had water. You'd have to shut it down and take you about a day to 2 days to refill the water tower, and a couple days then to re-disinfect the whole system. So the whole town would have been without water for several days. Now, how often does that happen? Hopefully not very often. But that is a real example that this happened a year and a half ago. And because our guys were here, knew what they're doing, were able to react and get that fixed quickly, we avoided that. So that is my short little presentation about it. More than happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead.
I've always been 100% opposed to any type of privatization of the water. I'm looking for the future here, and water is going to be an issue. You already look out west. They're facing shortages out there year after year after year. We're lucky we have the Missouri River coming to us. I have absolutely no interest in selling the private company on the water, or for that matter, anything to do with the sewers either. The companies don't come in and buy. You look at what happens in National when they buy up Company A, Company B, they take it apart and then they sell out parts of it to somebody else. And then they just simply dissolve the company. In this case here, they come in with a low price trying to suck people into it. And then after they got you, we'll just nickel and dime you to death till you get up to whatever the case might be. And that water is going to be the issue here. It's going to be, you have to have water, period. And if you don't donate that to another company, sell it to them, and we're going to be in a world of hurt down the future. I'm just 100% opposed to it.
Councilmember Lawson.
Thank you for that information, Greg. I'm going to reiterate some of your points because when I saw this on the agenda, I did some research of my own. I'm glad that we're discussing this topic here and before voters go to the polls on April 5th. I think there is important context for residents to have because they've seen several iterations of plans to address our decaying water lines over the last few years and through different city administrations. I was contacted by a Belton resident who's very knowledgeable on the privatization of public utilities. Jack Bondin previously served in the Missouri legislature for a number of years. I believe he also said he was involved in rate making for public-private partnerships across the state while in office. And if I'm not mistaken, he spoke with several people on the council about this privatizing Belton's water system through his client, Missouri American Water. If Jack Bondin reached out to you about this, would you raise your hand? Okay. I appreciate him sharing information and his experience. I've researched the topic myself, and I have some key objections to selling our water system to a private company. If Belton was fully out of options, if our population was declining and our growth was stifled, we would be in a different position where we would potentially want to consider this. However, we are right now in a very good position to invest in our city and better maintain our infrastructure responsibly. One of the upsides of North Point's development in our city is the assessed value of our city going up and our bonding capacity increasing with it. The upside of using debt to do this work is threefold. We could get the work done in 5 years versus 20 plus years. We get the work done at today's cost versus whatever lies ahead. And debt is relatively cheap right now, not to mention what we put on the ballot is a no tax increase way to pay for the work. I also think that what we are seeing with Spire's rate increases should be a cautionary tale. The Missouri Public Service Commission approved a 96.2% materials increase, and Spire intends to go back to that same regulatory body this spring to request another increase for delivery costs. I didn't realize it was 25%, so thank you for that. Spire projected the increase of less than $25 a month for the average customer. That hasn't been my experience or my neighbor's experience. In fact, I said on my council page I had residents reaching out to me wanting to know what was up with their Spire bills, and I had to tell them that was fully out of this council's hand. I can't imagine putting our water costs in a similar position, no matter how enticing it may be, to hand the problem over to voters and essentially abdicate our responsibility to be good stewards of our city, our infrastructure, and our tax dollars. Discussing this now, before April 5th, removes doubt from voters' minds that we considered all options and chose the best path. Angela Kraft, Dave Clark, myself, Mayor Larkey, and 4 citizens were on the Mayor's Water Task Force that met several times over the last year to determine our best plan to fix our water lines, and that plan is what will be on the April ballot. Some of the apprehension I've heard from voters, I understand, but, you know, the biggest concerns being there's no sunset on the capital improvement sales tax. Well, if you've paid attention to any of the work sessions and what this city needs, you'll understand why there will be projects going forth. Additionally, if the bond measure passed, but the means to pay for it didn't, that doesn't mean this is a council of 9 people who would rush out to take on $60 million of debt and nowhere to pay for it. So I appreciate the critical thinkers, you know what I mean? The people who are concerned about how we're going to fix this problem because they've heard a couple different runs at it. And I feel really good about the plan in front of them and very bad about privatizing water for a variety of reasons. So thanks everybody for being part of this conversation.
Anybody else?
I concur with Councilwoman Lawson.
As do I.
I concur.
As do I. Anybody else? All right. Go ahead.
Mayor, I mean, she brought up sunset clause on that tax, and I've heard that a couple times too. I know it's not on our agenda, but how many current sales tax initiatives do we have that actually have a sunset clause anymore?
We have 2, the capital improvement sales tax that is up in April for voter consideration, and the other one is the quarter-cent fire sales tax.
And when was that fire actually put in? I don't remember voting on that one, so that had to be a long time ago.
I really believe that it was right before fire station number 2 was built.
Okay.
So I think it's up in 25, isn't
Was that for fire station 2?
it? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's probably why I voted for it then.
It was to staff that fire station, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? All right. Seeing none. H, Mullin and 58 lot split.
Yes, Mayor Larkey. Actually, item H and I are items that the Planning Commission considered last evening. Item H is a lot split at Mullin and 58 Highway. That is an existing lot where the Magic Wand Car Wash had been, and it is being split into 2 lots to implement a final development plan for Chase Bank and a Take 5 oil change facility. So it's a simple little 2-lot lot split of an existing lot at that location.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Dave, you got any pictures of that lot split? Is it on, do I need to go back in yesterday's planning and zoning?
That would be available, yes, sir.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Item I, anybody else on H? Item I, Autumn Ridge 4th plat.
Yes, sir. Autumn Ridge 4th plat is 39 new single-family lots and dedication of public right-of-way and easements in Autumn Ridge. This is the 4th plat in Autumn Ridge pursuant to a preliminary plat approved by the City Council. And there will be 1 remaining plat, the 5th plat, to be filed very soon, and that will conclude the platting of land and construction in Autumn Ridge. But 39 new lots as a result of this final plat.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll adjourn the work session and take 5 recess. regular meeting to order. Pledge of Allegiance, Councilmember Clark.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mayor Larkey,
Here.
Councilmember White,
Here.
Councilmember Powell,
Here.
Councilmember Trutzel,
Here.
Councilmember Kraft. Here. Councilmember Clark,
Aye.
Councilmember
Here.
Goff,
Present.
Councilmember Lawson,
Here.
Councilmember Peak.
Here.
We have a quorum. Personal appearances. Proclamation for School Board Resignation Week.
This is National School Board Recognition Week, and I'd like to point out that this is for the school board members and the past school board members who donate their time for the betterment of kids and what they want their kids to be. Whereas the system of quality public education is essential to the future of our state and nation, and whereas the people of Missouri have a long tradition of support for public education and their local school districts, and whereas local school boards acting on behalf of and in close connection with the people of their communities chart the direction of education in their communities, and whereas local school boards serve as a key community advocate for children, youth, and the public schools, now therefore Norman Larkey, Mayor of the City of Belton, Missouri, hereby recognizes the week of March 6 through 12, 2022 as School Board Recognition Week in the state of Missouri and the City of Belton, and urges Belton citizens to recognize school boards as they strive with their communities to improve our public schools through quality leadership. In witness thereof, Norman K. Larkey, Sr., Mayor of the City of Belton, Missouri, has hereto set his hand and caused the seal of the city to be affixed at the Belton, Missouri, this 8th day of March, 1922, or 2022. Not 1922.
That's when he was born.
Consent agenda. One motion, non-debatable, to approve the recommendations noted. Any member of the council may ask for an item to be taken from the consent agenda for discussion and separate action.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Regular agenda. A motion approving the final reading of Bill 2022-08.
An ordinance approving a vacation of an unimproved dedicated right-of-way located west of the southwest corner of Town Center Drive and East Markey Parkway in the city of Belton, Cass County, Missouri.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Roll call.
Mayor Larkey,
Yes.
Councilmember Goff,
Yes.
Peak,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Trutzel,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Powell,
Yes.
Kraft. Aye.
Motion carries. B, a motion approving the final reading of Bill 2022-09.
An ordinance approving a final plat for Lot 1, RGFCU Plaza, a tract of land in the southeast quarter of Section 12, Township 46 North, Range 33 West in the city of Belton, Cass County, Missouri, and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to sign the plat for recording with the Cass County Recorder's Office.
Present.
Second.
We have two first and a second. Any discussion?
I-
Go ahead.
I'd like to draw attention to and Belton has had RG for many, many years. It was there when I started teaching in '67, but I'd like for them to tell me exactly how long RG has been as part of the city of Belton.
Thank you. We've been a part of the city since 1957. We got our start on the base. In 1976, we moved out onto our present location on Markey Road.
A long time.
I think
We
the
appreciate it.
oldest financial institution with the same name in our area.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I just want to say thank you for your continued investment in the city.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Peak,
Aye.
Kraft,
Aye.
Powell,
Yes?
White,
Aye.
Goff,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Trutzel,
Aye.
Mayor Larkey.
Aye. Motion carries. C, a motion approving the final reading of Bill 2022-10.
An ordinance amending Section 13-361 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Belton, Missouri.
Present.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Goff,
Aye.
Powell,
Yes?
Trutzel,
Aye.
Peak,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Kraft,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Mayor Larkey.
Aye. Motion carries. D, a motion approving the final reading of Bill 2022-11.
An ordinance approving the proposed fiscal year 2023 city budget as revised and appropriating funds from the revenue of the city.
Present.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilmember Trutzel,
Aye.
Powell,
Yes?
Peak,
Aye.
Kraft,
Aye.
Goff,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Mayor Larkey.
Aye. Motion carries. E, a motion approving the first reading of Bill 2022-12.
An ordinance approving the Ninth Amendment to the Old Town Belton redevelopment plan to approve the 722 Main Street project as redevelopment project 2022-01 and to authorize tax abatement as described therein.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Any public hearing?
In a public hearing regarding the proposed Ninth Amendment, the ninth was a Scribner error with the seventh, so it's the Ninth Amendment to the Old Town Belton redevelopment plan for redevelopment project 2022-01 pursuant to section 353.110.3, paragraph 2 RSMO. Any public hearing, anybody wants to speak from the public on this motion? Anybody want to speak on 2022-12? Seeing none, public hearing is closed, and the motion is before us.
Mayor.
Any discussion? Go ahead.
I just, not about this project, I think Carolyn might guess my question is, and if you told us this, I've forgotten it, but is there a time frame how long someone has once this is approved to get their project completed?
2 years.
2 years? All right, thank you.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that Delaney Case, who's the co-owner of the house and our next door neighbor, so I'm kind of biased, but she's taking a house that's been a drug house, been in terrible shape for a good 10 years, and she's already started the improvements. She's already working on it, and I really welcome her to the community and hope we can get this done quickly for her.
Go ahead again.
I guess my next question, Rob, good comments, by the way. Always good to welcome our neighbors over here to us, but when does the actual abatement start? Does it start as soon as we approve this, or does it stop, or does it start when they actually finish the project?
It starts when they complete the project.
And then somebody from the city goes through and makes sure it's all completed, like for the dollars and all that stuff like they're talking about?
Yes, the applicant will be responsible for submitting all receipts to city staff.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you can go by now and see our new roof and also see the fence posts for the fence she's putting on, yeah.
Anybody else? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mayor, I make a motion to move for a second reading on this item.
We have a motion for a second reading on Bill 2022-12.
Second.
And we have a second. Any discussion on the motion for a second reading? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion approving the second reading of Bill 2022-012.
An ordinance approving the Ninth Amendment to the Old Town Belton redevelopment plan to approve the 722 Main Street project as redevelopment project 2022-01 and to authorize tax abatement as described therein.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Larkey,
Aye.
Councilmember Powell,
Yes.
Kraft,
Aye.
Trutzel,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Peak,
Aye.
Goff.
Aye.
Motion carries. Do you understand what we just did? Instead of waiting until our next meeting, we read both at this meeting, so it's good, it's done. You don't have to come back. So just get with Carolyn, so. All right, I just want to make sure, you looked a little dazed, I just wanted to make sure you understood what we were doing, so. City Council Liaison reports.
Yeah, I'll give a parks update. The Spring Craft Show is Saturday, March 19th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at High Blue. The Easter egg hunt is Saturday, April 9th with the hunt at 11 a.m. And Summerfest is set for Saturday, June 4th.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Ron.
Okay, last night at the Planning Commission, Dave mentioned a couple of things. The lot split at 111 South Mullin Road, and that lot split allows the property facing the 58 will be a Chase Bank facility, and the back property along Mullin to be Take 5 oil change. We approved a while back the Take 5 oil change, and there was going to be a coffee shop in the front, but now it's a Chase Bank facility, and we approved that also, including the lot split, and also the Autumn Ridge 4th plat. He mentioned the 5th plat, and the 5th plat is the one that will allow Sycamore to connect hopefully with Catron or maybe another street, but the obvious one to me from looking from a map is to Catron to allow traffic movement through there as opposed to some of the other areas in town. So anyway, although all three of those were approved, Dave presented the 22-23 Planning Commission Development Review Schedule, and he also made an announcement, but I don't want to steal his thunder if he wants to make it, or maybe everybody knows, I don't know.
I don't have any thunder,
Yeah.
but yeah, maybe to update the council. Last Saturday, I celebrated my 70th birthday with my family and friends. It was a really great day, and I kind of hit my mark at 70 years old, so I think I'm at a position now where I want to conclude my 38-year career as a city planner. So I submitted my resignation to the acting city manager last week, and with regret, but I will be here through the end of March, and talking with the acting city manager about the possibility of maybe staying on board, doing some hourly work, just taking items through the planning commission so we don't lose the continuity of development approvals coming through the planning commission, city council, but that's to be determined. But that's my news. No thunder, but just an update there. But thank you very much for the opportunity to perform and do work for y'all.
Thank you. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, David.
Go enjoy those grandbabies, because I know that's where you're going, so. Anybody else? Oh, go ahead.
It's okay, I
saw
forgot
your-
I was
I saw
one.
your hand, but I just.
I
ignored
forgot
it.
I was one anyway. We had our first meeting for the Belton 150th birthday celebration. We had lots of great ideas. It started off with the specific day being August 27th and has now grown to a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday big party with lots of things planned, lots of things to look forward to. We do have a Facebook page that is up. There's not much information there yet, but that's where we're going to be putting it all out to everyone. So far it sounds really great.
Anybody else? I don't have nothing. The only thing I had is what she just covered, so I'm not gonna repeat it, so city manager's report.
Chief Lyons is gonna make a quick announcement.
This month, the police department has been doing tabletop exercises and then on weather-related events, and we're spreading those out and going to start involving other city departments. And we've also began the discussions with doing some stuff with the school district as well.
And Andrea has something.
I have an update on the senior center remodel. It looks fabulous. What? And
You don't get to go there yet. You're not that old.
I saw something about it being delayed because of materials.
it is. There was an expectation when we went into this that the glass was not going to arrive within the 3-week window that we had set aside for the renovations. Everything else was complete. The first coat of paint's on, and the windows arrived in Kansas City on the ground this morning. I talked to the contractor at 5:30 this afternoon. They've been out there all day working. They do have some of the product in. The rest is arriving by Thursday morning, and the anticipation is to have it finished by Friday evening.
Cool, good.
And then you all are invited, and we'll do a definite celebration.
I got gray hair, dude. I can go.
Anything else?
No.
Any communication from any city council? Go ahead.
I just want to point out and thank Chief Lyons, his wife, Lieutenant Norm, as I know him, and then Officer Pruitt. We had a fundraiser the other day at Aaron's Family Fun Center, and they are raising funds for a police dog. So I know earlier last year the police department was in a contest to get a police dog through a grant program and did not win that. So mentioned something to Robert Schmidt, who owns the bowling alley, and he's done one of these fundraisers for about the last 6-7 years, and they raised about $40,000-$50,000. So one of the items that we have selected is a police dog for the city of Belton. I think he said about $15,000 is roughly what something like that costs. So the only thing he wanted me to do is tell you Stryker sounds like a good name in case.
There you go.
We don't need spares or tin pins or anything, but Stryker's a good name. So
Gutter ball.
I just appreciate you guys coming out and helping to kick off that event, and it ended up being a good day.
Go ahead.
I just want to make the announcement. Belton Cares is going to be having their trivia night again on March 18th. They haven't had it for a couple of years, and so they're really excited. Doors open at 5:30. It begins promptly at 6, and for those that have never been there before, it is a lot of fun. The tables are $110 per team, up to 10 members, and they'll have mulligans, drawings, trophies. So if you're interested, reach out to Mary Cummins. You can go to the Belton Cares Facebook page for more information. And I think, Mr. Clark, aren't you going to have a table there?
Yeah, this will be my 4th time. If you want to feel dumb, come. And if you need some kids that understand like Harry Potter, I mean, I wish they would give you the categories ahead of time because I could pick my team better. I'm there to fund it. That's all I do is I fund it. So, Allison, you got a trivia?
I already signed her up.
You did?
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Oh, well, this kind of comes under the category of beating a dead horse, but last week or 2 weeks ago, there was a comment from the public, and I appreciate them coming and commenting on the statistics of the recycling survey, but I went back and did a little work on my own and figured out that indeed we are 95% confident within 4.5 either way of 65% that only 400 people can make a representative sample for the 23 or 24,000 people in the town. In other words, the 65% wanted curbside recycling and were willing to pay for it, Could have been as low as 60%, could have been high as 70%. But but even though it seems inconceivable that only 400 people could speak for 23,000, that's the way the math works out. So.
Well, Councilman Powell, I would tell you, I tell people all the time when people do a political poll, a lot of times if you look at them, they're polling 1,000 people for 6 million. And so when you think about a poll that they're coming out saying 1,000 people is representing 6 million, I mean 423 for 23,000 is a pretty good number. So I agree with you.
Go ahead, Councilman White.
I just want to remind everyone, at the end of this month, we have several days that we have for the mayor's town halls. And I'm encouraging all citizens to attend at least one of those town hall meetings. I think it's going to be informative and help you understand the ballots. And Ward 4's the 26th of March, so.
Yeah, those are the 20th, 23rd, 26th, and 29th. Go ahead.
I got one last thing. Today is, I think, National Women's Day. So I wanted to thank all the women out there that are, first of all, up on City Council. I mean, I think it's wonderful that you guys are engaging with our community and come up here and being involved. So, again, thank you. And to the women that work for our city, I appreciate each and every one of you. So, it's your day. Enjoy it. I know someone was a keynote speaker today. I don't know what that actually means, but Carolyn was at an event today, and she was the guest or the main speaker. So it's kind of nice to see the females out in the audience and in the workplace.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Brett, for reminding me. We do also have an online forum coming up this week, tomorrow night and Thursday night. Tomorrow night's is for MCC trustee, and then Mayor Larkey will be on as well to discuss our ballot questions. And then Thursday night is our running city council, and everyone plans to show to that. That is being opposed. So it should be a good turnout. It is online on Facebook. It's Better Belton community page. It will also be being broadcast out to our other Belton community page.
Anybody else? Seeing none, you gonna say something? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to enter into an executive session to discuss matters pertaining to legal actions according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.1 and to discuss matters pertaining to the hiring, firing, discipline, and promotional of personnel according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.3 and to discuss matters pertaining to negotiated contracts according to Missouri State Statute 610.21.12 and that the record be closed and the meeting adjourned from there.
Present.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Yes.
Goff,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Trutzel,
Aye.
Peak,
Aye.
Clark,
Yes.
Kraft,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Mayor Larkey.
Aye. Motion carries.